Good morning to all of you. In continuation of our discussion on mass spectral analysis. Okay, so in this session, we will discuss about one very important application of mass spectrometry, that is determination of molecular formula from mass spectrum. Okay, so as you all knew, now mass spectrometry has almost 100 years of history. So during this period, so many techniques entered into mass spectrometry, okay, as the technology is evolving and the data that is available to us is increasing. So many techniques were evolved for determination of accurate molecular formula of an organic compound. There are limitations and there are advantages for mass spectrometry. So I try to keep everything in as simple as possible. So let's see how it can be done. The first thing is, as far as applications are concerned, because we are more into application science. So what is actually molecular formula and why should we determine it? And is there any use as far as molecular formula is concerned in the compound analysis is what we have to see. Let's say if you take benzene, molecular formula is C6 and H6, means atomic composition of an organic compound is determined in this way. Okay, so when you see the history of structural elucidation of organic compounds in organic chemistry, you will see like the elemental composition is determined by using several methods where, let's say in this case, as far as benzene is concerned, how people came to know that benzene has 6 carbons and 6 hydrogens. So when you take benzene and burn it in oxygen, then the C6 is going to become carbon dioxide. So they will send the carbon dioxide through lime solution so that calcium oxide will become calcium carbonate. Then through gravimetric analysis, how much weight, how many moles of benzene gave how many moles of calcium carbonate is what they are going to determine at the end. And they will do a reverse calculation to find out how many carbons are there. In the same way, we have methods for determination of nitrogen, determination of oxygen, etc. Okay, Zeldal's method for determination of nitrogen. So when we have those methods which are easy or which are practical in our organic chemistry laboratories without using extensive instrumentation, then why are we not using them? Usually in these techniques, we need grams of compound. The compounds will go into grams. And as we are using volumetric analysis, the error percentage is more than 0.5%. Okay, so that is one major lacuna as far as volumetric analysis is concerned. Okay, and then in continuation of this type of studies, so their scientists evolved a super sensitive technique, what we call it as micro elemental analysis methods, where we hardly need 10 milligrams to 50 milligrams of substance to obtain information regarding one element. Hence, the amount that is needed got significantly reduced. Okay, so microelemental analysis is the right now we are also using in our research laboratories. Whenever we synthesize a compound, we submit the sample for microelemental analysis, so that this is also called as a CHN analysis. Carbon, hydrogen and nitrogen content is what we are going to determine in our organic compound by using this. So these also are dependent heavily on classical chemistry methods. So that's the reason why here also you will have an error percentage close to 0.5%. Okay, so we cannot avoid that. But right now, science is accepting an error 0.05%. as agreeable, that this much accuracy can be achieved by latest microelemental analysis methods. Okay, so this is one method that is available for us as far as molecular formula is concerned. Okay, so this is possible only when you have milligrams, at least milligrams of sample. And here the elemental composition that we are getting is limited to a few elements. We need to know what are the elements that are present in the compound. Okay, so with this background, so this is one major hurdle as far as organic compound analysis is concerned. So we start our research work by determining molecular formula first. Then we will go to mass spectral analysis, IR, and then NMR. And then we will come back to mass at the end. Okay, that is the sequence. So we have to initiate our research work with a molecular formula. So scientists started working on extracting information from mass spectrum by observing mass spectra of several molecules, because right now millions and millions of compounds data is available. So some of them directly indicates or directly gives us a rather accurate depiction of elemental composition. So I will tell you 4 very important points in that and how we were able to do that. So in case of mass spectrum, what exactly is happening? We presume that, let's say if you take methane, because it has CH4, so one electron is gone, so you will be having this molecular ion, and you are supposed to get a mass spectrum like this. Okay, so CH4 means what? Carbon is 12 plus 4 into 1 is equal to 16. So we have molecular ion over here. So mass to charge ratio will be on the x-axis and abundance will be on the y-axis, relative abundance. And now we have the most abundant ion peak as the base peak and the remaining as fragment ions. So here 1 carbon and 4 hydrogens are there. Obviously 16 is the molecular ion. We got everything perfect. But here we also need to understand the term relative abundance, relative ion abundance. Relative ion abundance deals with, let's say if you take 100 molecules and within 100, how many were 16, how many were 15, how many were 14, it is like that. Okay, so you can have very, very small peaks also can be there, which will tell you a lot. Okay, now we are presuming that carbon has carbon 12 MZ ratios. We are assuming that carbon has the weight 12. Okay, so as you all aware, elements can be isotopes. Okay, isotopes can be there. So if you take carbon 12 is there, carbon 13 is there. In case of hydrogen, we have hydrogen, deuterium and tritium all are there. But if you see, on an average, more quantity of carbon 12 will be there, approximately 99% will be there. In case of hydrogen, you will have almost 99.9% only proton is there. Okay, deuterium, tritium are very, very, very less. Hence, we presume that molecular ion shall be 16. Okay, if we consider presence of C13 or presence of other isotopes, then you can get peaks, extra peaks, though they are very small. Extra peaks will come in after the molecular ion. So how it is possible? Let's see. So this is the table, standard table of what are the different types of isotopes that can be there, that we generally observe in drug molecules. Like hydrogen will be there in almost all organic compounds. A hydrogen can exist as a proton or deuterium, or a tritium is also there. Tritium concentration is almost negligible. But here if you see, 99.9885 is the atomic weight of proton. Whereas deuterium, sorry, 99.9885 is the relative abundance. Abundance means if you take 100 molecules of hydrogens and 99.9885 is the percentage of hydrogens that are there, and 0.0115 is the percentage of deuterium that can be there in a population of hydrogens. In the same way, if you take carbon, C12 and C13 both can be there. So here if you observe, C12 is only 98.93, whereas carbon 13 is almost 1.08. What does it mean? It means it is almost like 1.01%. C13 will be there. C13 is 1.01%. Means if you take 100 molecules of a compound, 100 molecules of a compound, then 99 molecules will contain C12, all C12, and one molecule will contain C13. What does it mean? Okay, so if you have one molecule, you will have M plus ion, and because 13 is plus 1, okay, so M plus 1 will also be there. M plus 1 will also be there. If we have only one carbon, like in case of methane, we have only one carbon. So this will be 99%, and you will see the percentage of M plus 1 will be 1.01%. Okay, so it is like that. We can clearly see presence of isotopes if you clearly observe molecular ion and other ions that are observed, like M plus 1, M plus 2 ions that are coming. Okay, so they will clearly tell you how many carbons are there. And then if you see other M plus 1 contributors, if you wanted to see, in case of nitrogen, N14 and N15 can be there, but the percentage is almost negligible because this is almost like 1/3 of carbon contribution. And in case of oxygen, they are very, very less. In case of fluorine, you don't have any other isotope. We have only one fluorine F19 is there. Sodium, no. In case of silicon, we have three isotopes are there: silicon 28, 29, and 30. So 28 is 92%, 29 is 4%, 30 is 3%. So if you are analyzing, okay, silanes, organic silanes, okay, silyl ethers are there. Though we don't use silicon based compounds as drugs quite often, we have other applications, like in case of HPLC, okay, in case of HPLC, RpHPLC columns are filled with silicon organosilicons, okay, so RpHPLC. So there also you will, because if you are in a pharmaceutical industry, you may also get a sample from HPLC manufacturing industry, okay. So if you are an analyst, you have to be aware of all these things. So here, if M plus 1 is 92%, M plus is 92%, M plus 2 is almost 4.68%, and M plus 2 also will be there. So M plus 1, M plus 2, all those will come in case of silicon. Then for phosphorus, we don't have any other isotope. For sulfur, again, we have three isotopes: sulfur 32, 33, and 34. So here, sulfur 34 is significant. Okay, so this is M plus, this is M plus 1, this is M plus 2. Okay, so M plus 2 percentage is significant. So this comes under M plus 2 contributors. So in case of silicon, M plus 1 contributors are there, M plus 2 are also there. And the next and very, very important entities we have over here are, in case of halogens, we have chlorine and bromine. In case of chlorine, we have two isotopes. One is chlorine 35 and 37. So this is a very, very important observation. So if you observe it here closely, 75.78 is the M plus, and chlorine 37 means M plus 2 is 1/3 of it. Okay, if you see 3:1. Okay, so they are in the ratio 3:1. So that's the reason why very strong presence of M plus 2 ion will be there in this case. So chlorine, and in case of bromine, we have 79 and 81. So these are the two isotopes. Both are present almost equal. 50.69 is the bromine 79 and 49.32 is the bromine 81 isotope. So M plus and M plus 2 will be there in 1:1 ratio. 1:1 ratio. Okay. So to summarize, if you see here clearly, some of the elements that are present in this table, so which are regularly seen in most of the organic compounds that we use in pharmaceutical sciences. Okay, they contain carbon, nitrogen, halogens, sulfur. Okay, so we are expecting M plus ion, but we often see M plus 1 ion, M plus 2 ion also. Okay, so you should not we should not confuse with the extra peaks that are coming, and don't presume that your compound has some problem. Okay, so it is because of isotopic contributions. Isotopic contribution, that is the first point. Second point is, if you see the relative abundance of M plus 1 and M plus 2 peaks, so they will give you a clear-cut understanding on qualitative and quantitative presence of certain elements. So if you see in this table, let's say you are having a halogen compound. Okay, so we have M plus ion and M plus 2 ions are there in the mass spectrum, and both are in 1:1 ratio. What does it tell you? Both are in 1:1 ratio. What does it tell you? So if you see in this table, we have only one possibility in bromine. In case of bromine, you can have M and M plus 2 in 1:1 ratio. So this indicates that bromine is there in your sample. Okay, so that is the application here as far as M plus 1, M plus 2 ions are concerned. So they will clearly indicate presence of certain elements. If M plus and M plus 2 both ions are there, and then if both are in 1:1 ratio, it indicates that bromine is there. Okay, so in that way, certain elements can be known. It may not be able to tell you anything about fluorine or iodine because they don't have any contributions towards M plus 1 or M plus 2. Okay, so it has its own limitations, but it is telling you information regarding halogens like chlorine and bromine. So that is the positive point over here. I hope you understood the concept here. Okay, so we need to have a clear-cut understanding on isotopic abundances. This not only tells you that isotopic abundance indicates qualitative and quantitative presence of certain elements in your compound. Second thing is, we must understand, okay, so if you go to high molecular weight compounds like proteins, okay, so we are expecting a molecular weight of around 1800 for a protein. Then if you see 1809, you should not consider this as impure or not the product form. Okay, so when you are increasing number of atoms, let's say if you take nitrogen, so how much is the percentage of nitrogen? In 100 elements, we can have 0.368. Let's say if you have 100 nitrogens in your compound, because it's a protein, very big protein. Let's imagine that, presume that it has 100 nitrogens are there. Then how much will be the contribution of N15? 0.368 into 100. So this will be 36.8. Okay, that is huge. So that's the reason why. Okay, so when you are increasing molecular weight, when you are increasing certain elements in your molecular formula, M+1 will give you cumulative contribution. So that's the reason why instead of the expected molecular weight, we will get a slightly extra molecular weight, which you shall not consider as some impurity or not your product. Okay, so that is your product only. It is coming because of the contributions from the isotopic elements that we have. Okay, M+1 or M+2. Okay, so this is the information that we will get from mass spectrometry. The next one is, so let's implement. Okay, let's understand how the concept that we have learned over here can be applied. So here, in case of mass spectrum, when you submit the sample, you can ask either for the spectrum or the data. Both can be used. So this is another way how we get the data output. Let's say this is the mass data we got for methane. Okay, so methane is CH4. So molecular weight is 16. So we are supposed to have this as the molecular weight. Yes, molecular ion has come. So C12 1H. Then molecular ion is there and it is matching. Yes. Then what is this one? 17 peak will also come, but if you carefully observe the mass spectrum, it looks like some kind of a noise. But if you carefully calculate the relative abundance, it will be 1.1. 1.1. So this is actually contribution from the isotope. What is the isotope? 13C. 13C, that is over there. 13C and 1H4. Or 13C, 12C, 2H, 1H3. Okay, so all these are possibilities. Permutations and combinations will contribute. All elements will give you cumulative contribution. Okay, then there is also a possibility that M+2 can also be there because we have tritium over there. Okay, 14C is also there, but I did not mention over here. But the element C14 was also there, but its contribution is minuscule. Okay, so this is the way how instead of simple molecular ion, we also will get M+1, M+2 and multiple M+3 ions also can be there in your mass spectrum. So while during analysis, don't worry, and we will make use of M+1 and M+2 ions for deciphering molecular ion. Okay, so here, what is the percentage of M+1? 1.1%. So these are all the ions that we have. So the remaining 15, 14, 13, 12, whatever we have over here, those are what we call them as fragment ions. So this is M- ion. These are all fragment ions. Okay. Now, relative intensity. Okay, how that can be understood is, let's say we have 10,000 molecules of methane. Now, how many 12C14 will be there? So, if you take into consideration the relative abundance of carbon 12, there are exactly 9,889 molecules of 12C can be there. And what about 13C? What is the relative abundance? So, approximately 1.01 or 1.08 actually. So they rounded it off to 110. So 110 molecules of 13C will be there. Okay, 13 plus 4 into 1 is 17. Now its relative abundance is 1.1%. Okay, so contributions from ions with 2H are ignored because they are very small. Okay, they are in the third digit. So that's why we don't consider that as the major contributor. but the carbon 13 has 1.1%, approximately 1.1% contribution is there. So that's why we consider that. Now, what about 14C is about 1, is very, very, very less. Okay, so that's why we don't consider it as the dependable contributor. So now, if you see in this calculation, a simple logic is, let's say if we have one carbon in the molecule, means CH4, means only one carbon is there, then M plus 1 contribution will be 1.1%. Okay, M plus 1 contribution will be 1.1%. Then if you take here C2H6 or H10, CN H2N. Okay, let's say if you have two carbons are there, then what will be the percentage over here? It should be 2.2%. Okay, let's say if we have C6H6 benzene, then what will be the M plus 1 contribution? It will be 6.6%. Okay, so if you see in the molecular ion, in the mass spec, if you observe M plus, it gives you molecular ion. And if you see the relative abundance, okay, abundance of M plus 1 ion, and its comparison with M plus, the percentage of M plus 1 ion when compared to M plus will give you number of carbon atoms. We'll do a few problems so that you will get more clarity. Are you able to understand what I am saying? Hello? Are you able to understand the concept of M plus 1 and M plus 2?
Yes, sir.
Very good. Okay. So we'll do a few problems so that you will get more clarity. So M plus 1 contributors, just now we have seen, in case of carbon, we have definitely the contribution towards M plus 1. So this is what I told you. Okay. So whenever we have carbon in the compound, for every one carbon that is present in the molecular formula, M plus 1 percentage relative abundance will go by 1.1%. Okay. So when we have 2 carbons, it will become 2.2%. When we have 6 carbons, it will become 6.6%. So that is very, very important. When the relative abundance or when relative contribution of M is 100%, then relative abundance of M plus 1 by 1.1% gives the approximate number of carbon atoms in the molecular formula. So this is a very important observation that we have to understand. Other M plus 1 contributors, just now we have seen nitrogen is a contributor, but the percentage is 1/3 that of carbon, so it is only 0.37%. And sulfur also is very, very important contributor, approximately 0.76% is there. Silicon is also there. Silicon, we hardly find any organic compounds in drug category. Okay, hydrogen, deuterium is there, but it's very, very less as far as percentage is concerned. Oxygen 17 is also very, very less, so they are ignored. So that is about the M plus 1 contributions. M plus 1, whenever we observe, we have to think about presence of carbon, nitrogen, sulfur. These are the 3 elements. If a hint is there that silicon is there, silicon will give you a very, very significant proportion of M plus 1 ion, approximately 4%. So regarding M plus 2 is synonymous with halogens. Okay, if you are going through mass spectrometry, so these are classical problems. Okay, maybe while preparing for GPAT, you might have got these as important points. Okay, so chlorine and bromine both are very, very important contributors of M plus 2 ion. Along with bromine and chlorine, we do have silicon. So in isotopes, if you see sulfur, the relative abundance is 4.2%. Okay, so M plus 2 is about 4.4. Okay, if you compare, molecular ion to M plus 2 ion, it is approximately 4.4. Then chlorine. Chlorine is almost 3:1. M and M plus 1, M plus 2 will be 3:1. Approximately 100:331.9. Then in case of bromine, it is almost 50-50. Okay, 50-50. So that's why 100:97.2. So these are the three major contributors of M plus 2 ion. These are the elements which we regularly observe in pharmaceutical products. Okay, so let's say here, this is the, what is this one? Isopropyl chloride. If you see the molecular ion here, okay, the molecular formula is C3H7Cl. You can see M, M plus 1 and M plus 2. Both all are there. So this is about M. 78, yes, we got it. Then M plus 2. M plus 2 means 78 plus 2. We got 80. 80 is also there. And if you see the relative abundance, okay, percentage of M plus 2 in M plus 1. So that is approximately 3:1. So this clearly indicates presence of chlorine. Presence of chlorine. Okay. Now you can ask me a question. If we have one chlorine, we are able to see peaks like this. This is 3 and this is 1. What happens if you have dichloro? Dichloro. Okay. So in dichloro, what we need to see is chlorine and chlorine. Okay. So this chlorine can be 3. This chlorine can be 3. Means M. First possibility. The second possibility is this can be 3 and this can be 1. Means this is M plus 2, this is M. Means M is there, M plus 2 is there. Third one is this is 1 and this is also 1. That is M plus 4. Okay. So these are the three possibilities. So here the peaks will come like this. Okay. So 6:4:1. So in this proportion, you will see the distribution of molecular ions M plus 2 and M plus 4. Okay, if more chlorines are there, proportionately you have to add them so that you will be able to get appropriate figure like this. Okay, so in this way we will be able to identify presence of a halogen and also how many halogens are there. So there also, that also we will be able to obtain. Right now we have so many softwares which can predict presence of halogens by just looking at the M, M plus 2, M plus 4, etc. ions. The second one is in case of bromine. In case of bromine, as we have just now discussed, the M plus and M plus 2 both ions are present in 1:1 ratio. So here you can see the ions. So one is this is the molecular ion 122. Yes, it is there. And then if you see M plus 2, it is also there 124. And both are approximately in the presence of ratio 1:1. So here also, let's apply the earlier explanation. Let's say if we have one bromine, we are getting 1:1. Okay, so if you have two bromines, then what will happen? In two bromines, when we have two bromines, then we have M and M. This is first presence. Second one is M and M plus 2. Third one is M plus 2 and M plus 2. Okay, so if these are the combinations that are possible, it will be like this. 1:2, 2:1. So in this proportions, you will see distribution of peaks will be there. Okay, distribution of peaks will be 1:2, 2:1. So in this ratio, you will see distribution of the peaks. Okay, so you can do this simple math so that you will be able to understand. No problem. Okay, so here also by using mass spec, we can clearly say that whether halogens are there or not, how many halogens are there. We will be able to tell this information for simple molecules. No problem. That is about the contributions from M plus 2 ions. Okay. The next one is nitrogen rule. So nitrogen rule is straightforward and most of you are aware of it. So that's the reason why I don't want to spend more time on it. So you simply clearly you can see here, these are the molecular formula. You can see ammonia, hydrogen and trinitrotoluene, and here is simple caffeine. So if you see the molecular weights, whenever nitrogen is there in odd number, so when we have single nitrogen NH3, the molecular weight is 17. When we have even number nitrogen, the molecular weight is 32. And again here if you observe, N3 is there and 227, odd number. N4, it became 194. So that is really interesting observation. So what is the conclusion? Whenever we have nitrogen in odd number, whenever we have nitrogen in odd number, okay, the molecular weight shall remain odd. Okay, so when nitrogen is even, the molecular weight will also be even. So by just looking at molecular weight, if the molecular weight is even, then there is a possibility of presence of nitrogen, and nitrogen shall be in the even numbered position. Okay, so nitrogen shall present in even numbers, and molecular weight if it is odd, nitrogens if present, they also will present in odd number. Okay, so this is a very interesting observation, but it helps you solve the puzzles very effectively. This is what we call it as nitrogen rule. So for example, so if you apply, let's say 78 is the molecular weight that is given to you. 78 is the molecular weight. Okay, so then these are the molecular formula that are possible. M by Z is even. So sorry, there is some mistake in this. So we'll solve another problem. So there is a mistake in that. The next one is degrees of unsaturation. So this is what we call it as how many hydrogen atoms are degrees of unsaturation. Okay, degrees of unsaturation. So all of you, so have you ever heard of the word degrees of unsaturation? Degrees of unsaturation or hydrogen number, etc. Let's say if you take a saturated alkane like this, the molecular formula is C6H14. Okay, so means the maximum number of hydrogens that can be loaded in an organic compound, for given heavy atoms other than hydrogen, okay, like carbon, nitrogen, etc. So when one pi bond is there, then the number became maximum minus 2. And when you have 2 pi bonds, maximum minus 4. Okay, so it indicates that molecular formula, if you see, they follow a trend, they follow certain rules, so which clearly tells us how many degrees of unsaturation is there in an organic compound. Each pi bond reduces the maximum hydrogen count by 2. Remember this. The next one is, let's say when you have one ring, then also you will see the hydrogen count is reduced by two hydrogens. When you have two rings, so here also you can see that molecular formula is indicating that hydrogen count is reduced by 4, maximum minus 4. So for every ring, we are losing two hydrogens. Okay, so ring or a double bond, ring or a pi bond, both reduces the molecular formula by 2. Okay, so that is what we call it as degrees of unsaturation. Next one is nitrogen. So whenever there is a nitrogen is there, okay, then what happens? The hydrogen count increases by 1, because nitrogen can take in okay 3 hydrogens, because it is trivalent. So it is taking in 2 hydrogens, because from here, let's say if you take, this is CH2, one hydrogen is replaced by NH2. N is already carrying 2 hydrogens, so that is the problem. So that's the reason why we always will get +1. So whenever nitrogen is there, proton, it increases by 2. It is like that. So the molecular formula clearly tells you how many hydrogens shall be there in an organic compound. So each nitrogen increases the maximum hydrogens count by 1. So for carbons and nitrogens, maximum number of protons that can be there is, you can do these simple calculations to obtain number of protons that can be there. Okay, so it is very simple. Cn H2n plus 2 is the rule that we have to obtain number of maximum number of hydrogens that can be there. So here if you take C6H14, C6H2 into 6 plus 2, okay, means number of hydrogens is equal to 2C plus 2. Then if nitrogen is there, what will happen? For every nitrogen, 1 hydrogen will be added. So if you add nitrogen here, means number of nitrogens, this is number of carbons. So here number of carbons is 6. So 2 into 6 plus 2. 6 is number of carbons. So that is this formula. And nitrogen we are adding over here. So other elements does not have much influence on the molecular formula. So friends, I hope you understood the concept here. The way how we got this formula. It's very simple logic. This is what we call it as hydrogen rule. So in case of mass spectrum, from mass spectrum, how can we get the formula? So this strategy is meant for such a basic mass spectral analysis. We are not talking about high resolution mass spectrum. Okay, that's a different playground. That's in a different level. Okay, so this is actually meant for analyzing simple electron impact mass spectrum. So molecular weight will give you lowest mass of isotopes. So M plus 1 gives you carbon number. M plus 2 will give you presence of sulfur, chlorine and bromine. And there is no mass indicator for fluorine and iodine. Assume absent unless otherwise specified. We can get all data except oxygen, nitrogen and hydrogen. Molecular weight, mass is due to carbon, sulfur, chlorine, bromine, fluorine and iodine is equal to mass due to oxygen, nitrogen and proton. Systematically vary oxygen and nitrogen to get the molecular formula of the candidates. It is an exercise that we have to do. Okay, it's not a simple thing, but it is an exercise, mathematical exercise. So permutations and combinations we have to do. Trim candidate to list one by one, because we apply nitrogen rule, then hydrogen rule, and to the M plus 1 and M plus 2, the molecular formulas that we got, so that we will figure out some reasonable molecular formula at the end. It's a small mathematical exercise. We will do that. So for example, we can learn by actually practicing. Okay, let's say for example, so this is one of the data that I am going to give you. Okay, now you can try. All of you, I suggest all of you, if possible, take a pen and a paper and try doing this exercise. Try doing this exercise. M plus ion is 100%. M plus 1 is 6.9%. M plus 2 is 0.38%. Okay, 0.38%. Then please apply carbon rule, nitrogen rule, and halogen rule. Then you apply hydrogen rule. Okay, and figure out how many elements can be there. So here the procedure is, first M plus 1 is there and it is significant, 6.9%. Okay, so mass of the lowest isotopes is 102. 102 is actually the molecular weight. Now 102 is even, so there is a possibility. Let's say if nitrogens are there, then what is the possibility? Nitrogens can stay in even number. Okay, even number of nitrogens can be there. Then 6.9 is the relative abundance of M plus 1. So what did we learn in the earlier discussion? If you divide the relative abundance of M plus 1 by 1.1, we will get the number of carbon, possible number of carbons. Okay, so 6.9 by 1.1 is 6.3 approximately. So because if you round it off, it can be 6 carbons. Okay, so there is a possibility that you can have 6 carbons. So here usually in case of mass spectral analysis, 6 to 6.33 we round it off to 6. 6.34 to 6.66 we presume that either 6 or 7. 6.67 to 7 is what we consider as 7. Okay, please remember this. This is a calculation which, these are the conclusions which are scientists arrived after doing hundreds of samples. And the next one is the M plus 2 percentage is very, very less. It is not even 4%, because we need at least 4% to consider presence of sulfur. Okay, if sulfur is there, then we would be getting a M plus 2 percentage as 4%. Okay, so that is it. So this exercise is indicating that you can have 6 carbon atoms in your sample. So let's say if we have 6 carbons, 6 into 12 is equal to 72. So if you minus 72 from 102, you will be getting 30. Okay, carbons 6 and we have 30. Let's say if we keep even number nitrogens, okay, N2, N4, N6, which is possible. N2 means 2 14s are 28. So if you keep N2, how many hydrogens are remaining? 2 hydrogens are remaining. Only 2 hydrogens are remaining. Okay, is it really possible? If you take hydrogen rule, how many hydrogens should be there? 2C plus N plus 1. So many unsaturations will come. So we'll discuss about this one in the next slide. So there is no possibility of oxygen. So here 102 minus C6 is equal to 30 AMU. Okay, that is remaining for nitrogen, oxygen and hydrogen. So this is the meaning of this statement. Mass minus mass of carbon, sulfur, chlorine, bromine, fluorine and iodine is equal to mass of nitrogen, oxygen and proton. So this is simple logic that we apply. Now, how many nitrogens, oxygens or hydrogens we can keep? Let's say if we keep 0 nitrogen, 0 oxygen, The molecular formula is C6H30. Is it possible? The maximum number of hydrogens that can be loaded onto C6 is H14. Okay, N2N plus 2 means 2 6s are 12 plus 2 14. So 30 is so huge, so it is not possible. The next one is, let's say we keep one oxygen, 30 minus 16 is equal to 14. Yes, there is a possibility. See H14O, it is reasonable. Next one is, if you keep two oxygens, it is not possible. So if we keep one nitrogen or two nitrogens, because two nitrogens we have to keep. Why we have to keep two nitrogens? Because it is even number. So CH2N2 is also reasonable. You can have a heterocycle, okay? Absolutely no problem. So other data. So with this simple exercise, we could figure out two molecular formula. We could corner the molecule to two molecular formulas, that is C6H14O, C6H2N2. So these are the two. Then we can take into consideration the other functional group data that is obtained from IR, NMR, etc. So that we can consider we can strike off either one of them. Okay. So this data is not providing the absolute information. It will be giving you critical information regarding certain elements, okay, like carbon, halogens, nitrogen, and oxygen, etc. So that we can consolidate or confirm one of the molecular formula by taking into consideration other molecular formulas also. Are you able to follow me? Hello?
Yes, sir.
Yes, sir.
Good. Okay. So I hope you are also taking down, doing this exercise by taking paper and pen. Okay, please do that. This is the second example. I hope you can figure out something. Please see this and tell me what kind of element can be there. M plus is 100%. M plus 1 is 9.39%. M plus 2 is 34%. Can any one of you tell me what kind of element is there by observing 159? By observing the M plus 2 ion.
Chlorine,
can you?
sir, maybe. Chlorine, maybe.
Excellent, excellent. Chlorine. It is definitely chlorine because it is approximately 3:1. If you compare M and M plus 2, it is 3 plus 1. 3:1. So mass is 157. Okay, mass is 157. So it indicates presence of nitrogen. It is odd, so odd number of nitrogens can be there. Second one is 9.39 by 1.1. Okay, that is what the formula I told you, na? M plus 1, the relative abundance divided by 1.1 will give you approximate number of carbons. So here we got 8.5. I told you, na, up to 0.33 we can consider as the lower number. Means if it is 8.33, then we would have considered it as 8 carbons. Now it is 8.33 to 8.7. So here we have to consider either 8 or 9. 8 or 9 carbons. The next one is 34%. So one chlorine can be there. There is no possibility of sulfur or bromine because it is 34%. Let's say if we get here 40%, then if we get here 40%, we got excess of what is needed. If it is 34%, then we can consider it as chlorine. But if it is 40%, we cannot consider bromine. So there is, this indicates the presence of sulfur. Okay. So you have to be very careful here. So we are confirming two things here. One is number of carbons. In the first calculation, let's try 8 carbons and 1 chlorine. So 26 AMU is remaining for oxygen, nitrogen, and protons. So if you keep 1 nitrogen, 12 hydrogens are coming. C8, H12, chlorine, nitrogen. Yes, it is reasonable. Not enough AMU available for 1 oxygen and 1 nitrogen because we have to compulsorily keep 1 nitrogen. compulsory, because the molecular weight is odd. So that's the reason why we cannot incorporate another oxygen here, because the remaining only 12 is remaining. If you require an oxygen, you either have to forego nitrogen, or you cannot accommodate anything over here. So that's the problem. So with this, we cannot consider 9 carbons. If we consider 9 carbons, then what is happening? Only 14 AMU is remaining for oxygen, nitrogen, and hydrogen. As I told you, nitrogen need to be there. We cannot avoid that. Then what will happen? You are absolutely getting no place for hydrogens. No other element is possible. So it is reasonable, but we can hardly find any compound with this type of a composition. Okay. Sometimes we also have to see practicability. So not enough AMU is available, not enough space is available for any other element. So it is not that much possible. Okay. So what does the formula reveal about molecular structure? So friends, I hope you understood the concept here. With the appropriate analysis of molecular ion, M+1 ion and M+2 ion, we will be able to identify a presence or absence of an element, and also we can decipher the critical information regarding elements which are obviously always present in organic compounds like carbon, nitrogen, sulfur, halogens. Okay, so that information clearly is obtained from molecular mass spectrum, and from there we apply the logics, okay, which are derived out of knowledge that we gained by observing several molecular formulas like nitrogen rule, hydrogen rule, unsaturation, and then ion relative abundance of isotopes. So these information we apply to obtain reasonable molecular formulas which can be corroborated by using data obtained from other spectroscopy techniques like IR, NMR, etc. So molecular formula, what does it tell you regarding functional groups? Okay, so let's say in the earlier examples, when oxygen is not there, okay, so in the earlier example I told you C8 chlorine is there, nitrogen is there, and the remaining are hydrogens. Then what it is telling you, there is no oxygen, so oxygen related functional groups are not there. So it clearly helps you strike off some of the possibilities. Plus, when nitrogen is there, there is a possibility of presence of certain functional groups like amine can be there, imine can be there, cyanide can be there, nitrogen can be there as a part of a heterocyclic ring. All these are possibilities. Okay, so in that way, it clearly tells you that a presence of certain functional groups can be there, some absence of certain functional groups. Then pi bonds, okay, from molecular formula, by using degrees of unsaturation, that calculation, we can figure out presence or absence of certain functional groups. That is what we call it as double bond equivalence. Okay, so friends, with this I am concluding one part of my lecture, that is how can we obtain molecular formula information from mass spectra of a very simple mass spectral techniques like electron impact mass spectrometry. Is it clear to all of you? We are going to practice these problems in our future lectures. Okay.
Okay.
Yes, sir.
The next one is I'll try to take you further into HRMS. Okay, we are very fortunate that high resolution mass spectrometry techniques came into being so that they can provide you data up to 4 digits or even 5 digits sometimes. we have in our analytical facility, time of flight analyzer is there. Okay, and we have ICR is also there in many of the instrumental facilities in India, like CDRI, IAC Bangalore, etc., where the molecular weight can be obtained up to the accuracy at the 6th digit, up to 5th or 6th digit. So what is the significance of getting the molecular weight up to this much accuracy? Okay, as you all knew, let's say you have CH4. Okay, so carbon, the average mass is 1.00794. Okay, so is the hydrogen atomic weight? So 4 into this one, and 1 into, for carbon we are taking 12.0110. Okay, so if you do this calculation, you will be getting value at up to, okay, fourth digit. Okay, so if two compounds have same molecular weight, they can be differentiated by looking at these 4 digits. We can either obtain the molecular formula by giving this data, or we can obtain qualitative data for differentiating two compounds. Okay, I'll give you one simple example here. We are going to further discuss about this one, okay, in our future lectures. So these are the two compounds, flunixin and enliconazole, okay, is an antifungal, and one is anti-inflammatory drug. So if you see low resolution mass spectral data, okay, we usually get data like this. In, okay, molecular ion is 296. So if you see the molecular formula here, C14, H14, Cl2, N2O. Whereas here C14, H11, F3, N2O2. Both are significantly differentiated as far as molecular formula is concerned. Whereas if you see the molecular weight, both have the same molecular weight. So how can we differentiate them? Okay, so one is, there comes the HRMS, where if you see the molecular weight up to 4th or 5th digit, whatever highest digit that is available with us. So 14 carbons means 14 carbons and 14 hydrogens, and then 2 chlorines, and then 2 nitrogens and 1 oxygen. So if you do all this calculation, we are getting a value 296 is there, 048317. Whereas if you see the second one, flunixin, the value is completely changing. Okay, so the difference is coming from the second digit onwards. So in most of the HRMS, high resolution mass specs, we get accuracy at 5th digit. So if you take 5% error, then you can have error at 4th digit or 3rd digit, but not the second digit. Okay, so that is the reason why maybe a little bit of error can be there at the 4th digit or the 5th digit, but not, sorry, 4th digit or 5th digit, but not at the 3rd digit or second digit. So that is the reason why. We can have differentiation by using, these two can now be differentiated by using high resolution mass spec. One is obtaining molecular formula. Let's say if you give this data, if you get this data, okay, so by using automated softwares, we can obtain molecular formula. Second one is by using HRMS, we can differentiate closely related molecules. Okay, so in this way, HRMS can differentiate the molecular formula. So I'll show you one software where this can be done. So this is MF Finder. So whenever you submit the sample for HRMS, usually HRMS will, the instrument software will provide you the molecular formula. Right now we have that operating systems, but even if you don't have it, then 296.0772. Okay. Then what are all the possible molecular formulas that are there are coming over here. Okay, you can see clearly. You can see clearly what are all the different molecular formulas that are happening over here. I'm not using other tools that are available over here. Like you can also inform the software, the server, that you need molecular formula with fluorines, molecular formula with chlorines, molecular formula with specified elements. Okay, so here we are only taking into consideration, the software is now only taking into consideration carbon, hydrogen, nitrogen and oxygen only. We are not putting any limitations on elemental composition. So that's the reason why it is providing you all the data. So here you can see the errors that you can see over here. So the compound or the formula with the least error is coming on the top. Most probably the top 1 or 2 can be considered as a reasonable molecular formula. Reasonable molecular formula. Okay. So this is the way how right now you can use even softwares to decipher molecular formula from the data that is provided by high resolution mass spectral information. Okay. So friends, I hope you understood the concepts here. Do you have any doubts so far? Thank you for your patient listening. If you find any doubts, if you have any doubts, please let me know. I'll try to answer you. Okay. So we'll have one more session where we are going to discuss the fragmentation analysis for structural elucidation of a compound by using mass spectrometry. Okay. So we have 2 more sessions, in fact, regarding that. Then we will conclude mass spectrometry and we will go to another very exciting topic, that is nuclear magnetic resonance spectroscopy. Okay. So see you all again in the next class.